and we will move into a starting exercise.
Yes. I'm listening to you on my laptop.
There we go.
Sorry, please, we can hear you at the background. Kindly go on mute if you're not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Hafsaba. So one way that Zaki and I like to start the majority of our LiveWIRE sessions with different trainers or even with different entrepreneurs is by doing an improv energizer. And so improvisation, typically people like to think of that as being something more associated with theater, but we're seeing a global trend over the past 10 years or so that a lot of businesses, and specifically entrepreneurship businesses or training programs, have started to adopt improvisation because it really cultivates and engenders a lot of the creativity, teamwork, and kind of thinking on your feet skills that entrepreneurs especially need as they're trying to build up a business and interact with potential clients and investors. So we are going to play a game called Animal Object, and we know that Hafsaba is well acquainted with this game now, and so we are going to have Hafsaba be one of the group leaders. So we are going to break you up into Zoom groups, and you'll have about 3 to 4 people per group, and you'll have 4 minutes. Please, if you don't have your camera on already, and you have enough bandwidth, please do turn your camera on so that way people can see your facial expressions and pick up on those visual cues. And there are 4 primary rules of improv that we would really like you to focus on. So the first is yes and. So that means whenever anyone says anything, as adults, we're conditioned to immediately say no, to immediately narrow in and exclude other options. So with this game, you're not allowed to say no. Whatever the person before you says, you have to say yes and. So you have to accept it and be open to the idea and then build on it. Then the second rule is listen with intent to serve. And that's also really valuable because a lot of the time, especially when we're speaking or we're discussing a topic, we don't listen to what other people say and instead are already thinking about what our next response is going to be. And so with improv, we really focus on listening to all the way to the end of what the other person says, because then you have to take that and run with it. Then the third rule of improv is around supporting your teammates at all costs. So improv is kind of scary at first for some people. It can be a little tricky to try and think on your feet. And so with improv, it helps build confidence and really gain support and trust in your teammates, because you can be saying some really silly things, but it helps build that communication and also the trust in your team members. And then lastly is to trust your instinct. And so when we say trust your instinct, with improv, you know, this really builds on this idea of it's an open environment. It's fast, it's rapid, you don't need to apologize for what you say or what you think up. And really the goal is participation and connection. The goal is not to be perfect and to have a perfect idea, because that doesn't exist here. And then really, I think actually the #1 rule is to have fun. So we will walk you through the rules and discuss, and then we will reflect on this. So the animal object game is where in our small groups, one person is going to pick an animal. So maybe that's a zebra or a hyena. And then another person is going to choose an object, and it's any object. So it could be shampoo. In one group that I was just in, we chose a lion and a tennis racket. And then once you have these 2 objects, your team's goal is to brainstorm a business model based on that animal object. So as soon as you break into the groups, we'll pick the animal and object, then identify a team order, so that way people can just rapidly go through and speak. And so, for example, if I came up with a type of shampoo that is like zebra striped hair for millennials, Zaki would have to say, yes, and we can sell it on an international market, tapping into the like Rick Steves TV show. And then you say, yes, and. So you keep building on it. So we'll have 4 minutes to do this, and then we'll come back and we will break you into groups now. Any questions, actually, before we do that? Okay, great. Good luck, guys. Have fun.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Welcome back, everyone. How was it?
Quite short. We were just about getting into the groove before it ended. Quite short.
It's like we're back in the main session.
I'm sorry. You know, it's because I knew that you guys were coming up with such a good business idea that you were going to leave LiveWIRE, start your own company, and not come back. So I had to put a break.
So, why do we encourage improv for ideation in our LiveWIRE programs? Well, the reality is whether we're doing face-to-face training or more and more we're doing virtual training, we want to spark creativity, right? We love this word innovation. Everyone's talking about innovation, right? But what does innovation actually mean? It actually means that we as a training program are trying to put some young people through a training module and get them to come up with new ideas. New ideas don't just happen. So improv is a way to do quick energizers in a training program, in a workshop. Even if you're getting your entrepreneurs, if they're not just sole proprietors, but they're working with teams, they could play these games before they move into an actual business planning session. And so what we recently launched last week, Hefzibah saw on the regional call, we launched the newest LiveWIRE guide to improv for ideation. We have compiled the best improv for ideation games around the world. So it's about 20, 25 games that we're gonna keep building on. We're gonna be sharing those with you guys. It's games like Animal Object that you can play with your LiveWIRE entrepreneurs, right? We came back from that small group. We're already more energized. We're in a creative mindset. We're thinking about wild ideas. This is what ideation is all about, right? And business model prototyping is about thinking outside the box around our business ideas. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So wanted to just introduce that concept. Now we're going to jump into the meat of things. Let's get started. So today we're covering empathy map, business model environment, and market research. As Hefzibah mentioned, there are no bad questions. We have an hour and 45 minutes together. I'm expecting a lot of questions from you guys. There were some confusion on the homework that we're going to go through. There was a lot of great ideas on the homeworks, but we want you guys to ask questions. As trainers, think about how you would train on these tools. What parts were confusing? Ask us how we've used this in other LiveWIRE training formats, and let's really try to unpack all of these tools as much as possible. Sound good? Thumbs up if we're feeling good. I see a few thumbs. All right. So same as before, we want to review the lingering questions. We want to review the homework, and we want to discuss module delivery, as in how, as trainers, we actually deliver these types of tools. And we request that you're muting your microphone if you're not speaking. If you'd like to turn off your video, if you have bandwidth, that's okay, but we welcome you guys having video on. Let's all try to connect and learn from each other. And please you can use the chat box if you'd like, or certainly raise your hand, and Alyssa and I are gonna sort of make sure we have an open, free-flowing conversation.
Great. So first, we'll dive into the empathy map. And overall, with the homeworks, there seemed to be a really strong understanding of the empathy map. And we would just really like to underscore a few parts of it. So first and foremost, the empathy map is founded on this idea of a human-driven approach. So it's human-centric. We start our business model canvas with the customers. We want everything to be driven by who we're designing the product or service for. And it breaks away from some of the traditional models by really focusing on not only how the customer acts, but also what they think, what they feel, what they see, what they hear, really trying to consider all of the different influences within that customer's life. And one unique aspect of the empathy map is that it can be used for entrepreneurs. So if you're working for some ideation level entrepreneurs, or it could be used with SMEs if you're working with some existing businesses to help them really develop a deeper and shared understanding and empathy for the customers that they're working with. And the empathy map can be really useful if an existing SME that you're working with is trying to introduce a new product or service. So that way, that entrepreneur can really try and understand, okay, how would this new customer segment or existing customer segment respond to my new product? And one of the key areas that we found a tiny bit of confusion around in the homework was around the idea of who we are empathizing with. So that is where you really want to identify who is your primary customer. And we really want just one customer segment per empathy map. So that way you can really dive deep into the psychology of that person. And so we found, for example, if you have multiple customer segments, and say I'm selling juice and I'm selling specifically to a store, and then that store is selling to a second-hand customer, just people that will be coming in and out. If I'm selling to the distributor and I start my empathy map by saying, okay, I am selling to the distribution center owner, then I need to stick with that person throughout all 7 segments of the map. We found sometimes someone would start with one customer segment in the who, but then other elements such as the see or say might actually start to address different customer segments. And then also to get out of the building. So the whole idea of the empathy map canvas is this is an initial idea for your entrepreneurs to think through, okay, what do we think and who do we think our customers are? But then the way to validate that is by getting out and by talking to the customers through the focus groups, through formal interviews or informal, unstructured interviews as well, and then updating the empathy map. And then lastly, the empathy map is really made to connect back to the business model canvas. So it's an iterative process and really just keeps evolving. And so once your entrepreneurs work through the empathy map and have a much deeper appreciation and understanding for who their customers are, then this can be used to go back to the business model canvas, update the customers, and update the value proposition to really make sure that the value propositions are speaking to each customer, and then completing all of the other segments of the business model canvas. And Zaki, is there anything you'd like to add just in the brief overview?
Sure, a couple quick things. One is the empathy map is a UX, a user experience tool that has been around for a long time. So this is not something Alyssa and I just created because we're cool and smart and want to work with young entrepreneurs. No, the UX empathy map tool has been around a long time. However, this version of the empathy map is quite new because it pushes us to actually first frame who they are, and then we walk through their different senses, the external part of who they are, until we get into their hearts and minds. That's what the pains and gains are, right? That's that subconscious part of the customer that's really trying to get at the problem statement. And when we think about how to relate this back to the business model canvas, the reality is throughout LiveWIRE trainings, we don't know where new insights are going to come from. So we're trying to expose our entrepreneurs to different ways of thinking about their potential business, right? So even if it's something like selling small scale household solar panels. The actual business model itself is one that might be replicated from another part of Nigeria. But we need to really understand those customers and dig deeper into whether we really understand their experience in the past with similar types of products. Whether we really understand the pricing model and how they're going to feel comfortable using possible pay-as-you-go technology. Or whether we really understand marketing messages that are going to resonate more around health issues versus pricing issues versus ease and maintenance issues. This is getting at our customers' understanding of not just the product itself, but how the business model is actually going to be delivering value to the customer. So an empathy map can actually help you slightly update several different boxes of the business model canvas. And that's how we want to start thinking about it and talking about it as trainers. We want to pause here first for some questions.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is Victor. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Hear you.
Okay. I really appreciate the empathy map, like you said, giving a human dimension to the business model. I think one of the challenges we faced working on our own was the fact that we were doing an empathy map for a rural households. And we didn't have maybe the opportunity to really go out and really get those infos on a one-on-one. So we had to be thinking, more like for them, what will they think or how will they feel in this situation and all that. And then also thinking, bringing it back, when you want to do this kind of, the empathy map, definitely you need to go out there, focus groups, take surveys. When you face issues of maybe dealing with a rural setting or a rural customer base, if you're dealing with people on the urban areas, you can easily do a survey, you can easily, talk to them. But when you're dealing with those people at the rural areas and you have issues of language barriers and things like that, how do you go about it to really get a sense of what they are thinking or what they feel? What are your suggestions? What would be the best way forward for them?
Great. So I can get started. If you see here, the second bullet point, so we use this hashtag, right? Remember to get out of the building. So imagine that obviously this whole experience was for you all to act as though you are LiveWIRE participants, entrepreneurs going through this process, and we are the trainers training on these tools, right? So the tool itself, if we're running this empathy map in a classroom setting, either face-to-face or virtual, then what you guys did is maybe the first step. You put some ideas down. And what you just said is the exact reason why we say, great, now you've gotten a few ideas down. Now let's go validate those. So it means actually this tool keeps being updated, just like the business model canvas, just like all these other tools in the LiveWIRE sort of suite of tools, right? The entrepreneurs keep wanting to get more insights. They maybe meet with a mentor and they get some more some information. They meet with some certain experts in the field and they really understand something else. They go meet with a local government department and they understand something about the regulatory issue that they hadn't thought about, right? So the empathy map as a classroom exercise is a chance for them to just put down what they already think they know, but it does not stop there. It says, okay, great, now let's get out of the building and go talk to some folks. So that's the first part of your question, right? Alyssa, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think just, and the way to underscore what Zaki said that we see this practically applied with LiveWIRE is generally some of the programs will have different boot camps. And so they might have, say, a 2-hour workshop on the empathy map that's initial. And then there might be a week or even a 2-week break before all the entrepreneurs come back. And during that time, that's when the trainers expect the entrepreneurs to go out to talk to all the different stakeholders that Zaki had just mentioned, and then to come back and to be able to show, okay, This is my initial empathy map, and this is my updated empathy map, or my multiple updated empathy maps based on what I heard.
And this builds on the concept of peer learning, right? We as trainers hopefully have some good experience we can offer. We're training them on some of these tools, but we're putting LiveWire entrepreneurs in a group so that hopefully they can also be learning from each other, right? So imagine the experience Alicia just shared, which is everyone did a draft empathy map, then they are expected to go and talk to at least 5 to 10 people. Everyone's going to have a slightly more updated, rigorous, deeper, more thoughtful empathy map after that. And then we come back and we facilitate a discussion that helps them also learn from each other. So want to take the next question on rural market. The question is about market research in rural areas, right? This is a broad question in any part of the world, right? And so it's building products and services for rural markets, rural households, rural SMEs is going to be different possibly than in urban areas. And so I think even for DAI, we do a lot of work in rural Nigeria. DAI has been working with a variety of donor programs in many parts of Nigeria for many years. How do you get actual responsible, culturally relevant, timely information? It's a good question. I don't think we have great answers because it's going to vary by community, and it often might mean going to community leaders and asking if you can conduct possibly some focus groups and getting some buy-in. There might be some NGOs or other community-based organizations that are already working in those areas that have already mobilized groups in some ways. And that could be a microfinance institution that already works with a trusted group of women borrowers, and you're looking to add, possibly sell rural household solar panels that could be tied to a microfinance loan. It might be working through the MFI, could get you the trust and the buy-in to have a few individual conversations and possibly some focus groups. There's certainly ways in which, when appropriate, depending on the types of products we're selling, the types of trust that we have, going through local government, going through farming cooperatives and other types of business, possibly business associations that might be already engaging in those communities. And so there's many different ways, but I think the reality is it's going to be different in different communities. And we want to build a way in which the information we're getting can be trusted to help us actually define our business model. So the strategy, your rural engagement and your rural market research strategy is definitely one that you need to work with your entrepreneurs to think about. I wonder if others here in the group have some suggestions. How would you go about doing market research in rural Nigeria?
Thanks, Zaki. I think I learned a lot from what you just.
Okay, I think I think I'll suggest that if you have to go to rural communities in which maybe you don't speak the dialect or you don't have a whole 100% knowledge on what is obtainable there, that means you need to involve a local person that has a fantastic idea about the language, the culture, and moreover, the economic activities around the area. I think it can be of help. Thank you.
Great. Also, sometimes, to do surveys, local universities, local colleges are often doing this and being able to bring on a few young researchers that are in the area can be helpful. You're trying to gather an information on willingness to pay for solar panels, right? In 10 different communities in one state, right? There's a lot of rigorous analytical quantitative tools that you need to really think about. how much you want as a small business, how much you actually want to spend to get that research, how much can you leverage some of the great information that maybe some local NGOs are already doing on that topic. And to build on that, we actually have another slide here that, Alyssa, I don't know if we introduced this slide during our, during the actual training, or?
We did, but we didn't go into it very deeply.
So I want to remind us of this slide here, because the draft business model canvas, the draft empathy map, the draft business environment tool, all of them are about getting our entrepreneurs to put down some ideas, but then we get them to go out of the classroom to go talk to some people, right? And so this is a framework to help us think about how to do qualitative research, right? Quantitative research, there's a lot of rigor in how we structure the surveys and the questionnaires and how we want to be able to do random and representative sampling and all the aspects around sort of basic statistics and things like that. For qualitative, this is getting at the human side of it. This is how do we actually ask open-ended questions that gets a potential entrepreneur to really be honest about their challenges. Right? And the biggest juxtaposition is, okay, I have this solar panel and I say, hey, would you buy my solar panel? That is a bad market research question, right? If they know you, they'll be nice and say, sure. And if you say, would you buy it for $20 or $50, right? It's not really getting you real information, because human nature is going to they're going to say something, but you never know until you actually put it on the shelves what they would actually pay for it, right? So asking more open-ended questions about their experience, possibly with, as many of you guys point out, power outages in their own community. Maybe they'd had a negative experience where the government put up some solar panels that all broke. And so they need to understand that some of the biases around what they actually think solar panels were 10 years ago and what you are actually offering. So when you look at the left-hand side, these are trigger questions of helping our entrepreneurs prepare to get out of the building. They're sitting in that small community with that women's cooperative that is part of a local microfinance institution trying to talk about solar panels for households. And it's about helping our entrepreneurs think about market research, qualitative market research in a responsible way that doesn't bias the user or the customer. So that's what this tool is about. Any reactions to that? Questions, observations?
Hello, Zaki.
Hi.
Okay, so this is Pelema. I think there's a saying that goes that if a cup is full, you can't put more water in it. So I think one of the approaches, like you're talking about open-ended questions, is probably to create that space where they begin to, they're able to express themselves, whatever it is they want to talk about. Maybe you just give room for them to share their views, and then you listen in, and then you look for cues, you know, to begin to dive deep. So even if what they have to say, it's not exactly, you know, where you want to go or what you want to talk about. So just to chip in that.
And could you remind me, could you share the phrase again?
Okay, if a cup is full, you can't put more water into it. So for you to be able to get water into the cup, you have to empty it. So the idea is, if you want people to relax and be open, and you're talking about open-ended questions to help them do that. So one of the things that you might do in putting the open-ended questions is also to be an active listener. So you give them room to, and make it convenient for them to just talk and share their views, like creating a safe environment for them to express themselves, whatever it is they want to talk about. Like, how was your day? you know, and just general questions that brings them into the room. You know, if you're having, let's say, a group discussion, and then, okay, my day was this, how was the farm? You know, something about your child or your dad or something, you know, that helps you to connect with them. And then they share those things, and then they're able to relax, and then you can dive deep into what you have for the day.
And the reality is, for some young entrepreneurs, this process might be new. Going out and doing market research can be a bit scary, right?
Yes.
Or maybe and so we need to help them. We want to prepare them in different ways. And there's a lot of free resources on how to conduct focus groups, how to do customer interviews. What we're doing here is exposing you a little bit, but all of these areas, there's lots and lots of research out there. There's lots of training videos and tools and things like that. And we can always share more. I see, is it Charles that has his hand raised, or he did have his hand raised? Did he take his hand down?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
What I wanted to chip in there, Zaki, is in relation to what you asked earlier about engaging the community and, you know, dovetailing into the issue of using open-ended questions. This also plays out a lot when in the process of trying to do community development work. So
Yes.
basically, you're going to rely more on open-ended questions to be able to get out from the members of that community probably what they think, their own vision about their own development. So by so doing, you know, just like you have just rightly pointed out, you can be able to have an idea of what they are thinking, and then being able to marry it to what that product now, and in this case, that product is a developmental project, what that product will now be. So I think that it plays out in several forms. It plays out even in trying to research community development project. It's still the same principle, just like you have rightly pointed out. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry.
Please, go ahead.
The question I have, in a classroom setting where you have about 30 persons, maybe in a LiveWIRE training, how do you apply the open-ended question? You're also managing time. When does it, come in?
Great. So imagine we have 30 LiveWIRE participants in a training. There's a number of different ways to do this, but it could be that they're working on their business model canvas, and then they come back and you do some review with them. Possibly they do the empathy map, and then there's what we often do is we want to break them into smaller groups, and then they're sharing, right? So even introducing a bit of this tool of how we ask open-ended questions, how we do user experience and customer qualitative research. It could be that we have, as facilitators, we say, okay, everyone, think about one of your customer segments that you've done an empathy map for, and put together 10 open-ended questions, right? And then break into teams of 2 or 3, and then you review those with each other. It could be that you can actually be asking the other participants as an actual potential customer. And there was a question around role play last time, which was a really great question. We haven't had that question before. That could be an opportunity. But the goal of this is not to necessarily do the market research in the classroom. It's to help prepare them. And so often maybe breaking into small groups, and then we're refining a bit of our research methodology. We're refining some of our market research questions. And then they feel more ready after that training to go and do their homework, which is maybe to have 5 interviews and come back before the next LiveWIRE training. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And it looks like Henry also has something he'd like to add.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Zaki, hi Lisa. I want to say proud to go through this program, and oftentimes I do ask customers open and close-ended questions like yes or no answers that they give to me or true or false. But getting to know these open-ended kind of questions, I think it enables you.
I think, Henry, your screen just froze, or did my screen just freeze?
Now I'm also having a hard time hearing Henry. Henry, can you type, maybe try calling back in and you can type your comment here and we'll move on.
Ellis, you can write him a message for that. But what I heard is that I think it
get more in-depth opinion to tell you more about the get.
So I think we just lost Henry.
Okay, sorry. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, the network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apologies for the.
Like I was saying, these open-ended questions, like I'm saying, is a very great tool to enable you as an entrepreneur get more in-depth opinions and from your users, your customers. Yes.
And I think
I'm very glad.
No, thank you for that point, Henry. And I think for us, none of this is there's no right or wrong, right? The message is we don't know where insights about a business model is going to come from. So we're not saying qualitative questions are better than quantitative. We want some quantitative questions, right? So a survey can get us some good market research, but we're saying that open-ended questions, preparing our young entrepreneurs to also do qualitative research helps us have them come back to the LiveWIRE classroom and then really be thinking about certain aspects of their business model that they hadn't thought about. That's the message to bring home, right?
Yeah.
We're going to jump to the next section. About the business model environment tool. So Alyssa, I'm going to hand over to you.
Great. So we just zoomed in with the empathy map, and now we're zooming back out so that way we can really understand all of the different external forces that are influencing the business model, because businesses, as we all know, don't perform in a vacuum. And so this is a very dynamic tool that you can use with your entrepreneurs, not just during the ideation stage, but maybe every year, or even if there's a major external event that occurs. For example, with COVID, we've actually been working with entrepreneurs amidst COVID to try and consider, okay, within this new global environment, what are all of the technology changes, the socioeconomic trends, the regulatory changes, and who are the new competitors that are coming into this market amidst this global context with COVID? And so with the business model environment, it's focusing on, for this model, 4 different types of trends. And so these are just different ways that we try and envision and group different influences that are occurring. And so we have the competitors, and that's where we're thinking about who's the competition, who are the new entrants. And from the homework, one key area that we wanted to speak to is that you can think of the traditional competitors, but it's also important to think of non-traditional competitors. So for example, with Starbucks coffee, they were going through a similar exercise, and they realized, okay, Dunkin' Donuts obviously is a competitor. McDonald's with their coffee and breakfast sandwich is a competitor. But what they didn't realize is that actually the McDonald's milkshakes were one of the biggest product competitors with a Starbucks coffee, because people tended to like having a milkshake in the morning as they were driving to work. And so that's just where you can try and get your entrepreneurs to think a little bit outside the box with maybe tangentially related competitors, because that could help them reframe the problem that their customers are trying to solve. And then we have the socioeconomic and cultural trends. And so that's where we're really trying to understand, have the demographic factors of the customer segment changed at all? Are there any shifts in societal trends, and how's that influencing the buyer behavior? And within this section especially, we saw, for example, a few people wrote employment as a socioeconomic trend. And the real value of this type of tool is that you try and get your entrepreneurs to be specific about what the trend is. So, for example, it might be higher rates of unemployment, or it could be a greater working age and growing working age population, or higher education rates. So those are the types of kind of more specific trends that we recommend you working with your entrepreneurs to think through, because those insights is how they can then update their business model canvas and just business model in general. And then similarly with the technology trends, that was an area where a few people were writing, for example, e-commerce. And so there we'd recommend, okay, is it actually a higher usage of e-commerce or a customer preference for e-commerce amidst COVID-19? And this is where you can really get the entrepreneurs to think about technology trends inside as well as outside the market. And then lastly, we have the regulatory issues. And that's just where you're really getting your entrepreneurs to think about the policy and regulations that are specifically influencing their market, as well as any of the informal or formal business rules. So that's just a brief overview of the 4 factors. And the value of this tool, in addition to the empathy map, is that you always bring it back to the business model canvas. And so while working with your entrepreneurs, they might realize, oh, actually, amidst, for example, COVID-19, we really need to change the channel through which we deliver the goods and services to our customer, because the traditional channel we were using no longer exists. And it can help the ideation as well as existing SMEs think through new versions of their offerings. And then with respect as well to the competitors, we can be thinking through how can the competitors potentially become key market partners. And that's where there's really great value, and there's this idea now too, it's called co-opetition, that has become really popular. And so that's where thinking through, okay, how is this competitor potentially offering a sub-segment of a good or service that can really complement what I offer to then allow us together to create a larger market share. And with that, Zaki, anything else to add from the homeworks or just in general?
Great. So I think this is a really powerful tool. In a way it's simple, but in a way it's really powerful, because the business model canvas, we're getting them to look at sort of the business itself. And then this is simply asking them, okay, there's a whole lot more to prep you around all the other forces acting on your business that you need to be thinking about. So we're just consciously getting them to do that, right? And so this whole idea, I'm going to just keep saying it, is we don't know where insights are going to come from. So we've worked with this tool around the world with LiveWIRE programs where getting them to do this, and again, if you're going to do peer learning, it helps, right? If all of us were in a LiveWIRE classroom working on our own business model and we all did this business environment exercise, and then we presented back I bet if I shared some of my ideas around a rural household solar panel business, and I talk about new types of payment schemes and the technology trends of e-payments, Felicity and Maxwell and Henry are going to maybe come up with some ideas that I hadn't thought about. And then I'm going to learn from you guys. That's going to help me inform my business model, and it's going to help you guys inform each other's. So as facilitators, how do we create peer learning as much as possible when we use these types of tools? I think the other part of it is going back to this part on competitors. What we sometimes see is very ambitious, innovative young people saying, I'm going to become the biggest something in a sector, right? That's my dream. And so they might put as their competitor, they might put a national brand and say, this national brand, that's my competitor. But this last question is, can competitors become key partners? Another aspect of it is, can you maybe feed into their supply chain? Can you target a certain sector, customer segment, price point, or part of the country that some of the bigger players haven't actually ever entered? And if you can, then they're actually not your competitor. Then actually you guys could become partners and be learning from each other if you're going to be working on rural household solar versus rural SME and slightly larger scale solar, or certainly urban versus rural. And this is where the concept, the reason why the competitors the set of questions is next to the key partners is because hopefully it's going to give us insights into possible other key partners that we hadn't thought of. We really need to become a member of this renewable energy association that we hadn't thought of joining. And a bunch of other questions that we can probe, right? So the whole goal is doing this gets us thinking about some other aspect we hadn't thought about, and there's an insight. There's that aha moment. I hadn't thought of that. That's going to help me revise my business model. Another big one, which we see a lot, is a brilliant idea, passionate innovator is in a LiveWIRE classroom. We're working with the business model canvas. They've got their ideas down. They've been talking to friends and family. They're getting excited. And then we work with them on the regulatory issues, and they realize there's some major regulatory issues that have been changed that's going to make them rethink issues of intellectual property, issues of health and safety, or some other aspects where it's going to make them realize they need to bring on a new staff member. They need to do some more research. They need to use certain new types of materials. And so there's all sorts of ways in which we use this tool to keep getting new insights. And then, as Alyssa said, we always then go back to the business model canvas, hopefully with new insights, and then we consciously push them to update it in real time, which we can do in the LiveWIRE classroom. I'm going to pause there and open this up for some questions, some feedback around the business model environment tool. Many of you guys did great jobs with the homework. So was this easy? Is it clear? Is it a useful tool? What are some feedback on the business environment tool?
Zaki?
Yes, who's that?
Yeah, Edmond Alisanaguru.
Edmund, hi.
Yes, I'm excited with this particular slide, particularly the segment that has to do with competitors and new entrants. You've said it all, given the way that competitors behave, except of course there is an association of all the firms or competitors in a sector. How would you be able in real life to be able to get to know what your competitors are doing so as to be able to have an idea of their business models, and then think of whether you would be able to partner with them, filling a gap which you have observed, because the tendency is for competitors to keep information close to their chests.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great question. Think about, can you give me a business? And it doesn't have to be in the sort of renewable energy sector. Give me a business and let's walk through that example a little bit more.
Let's say
food processing, transport, industry,
yes,
ICT.
Yes.
Which
yes.
one? Name one.
For instance, we want to process plantain into plantain chips.
Great. I love plantain chips.
And there is a competitor. Somebody has been in the business for a long time, well established. You just a new entrant.
Great.
But you are trying to see how you can have an idea of his own model and what he is doing well and is not doing well, so that could be a learning for you in designing your own business model and what have you.
Great question. I also just want to just quickly acknowledge, Belema, we're going to get to your question in just a little bit. Very important question. It's a little bit more high level around structure. So we're going to actually jump here to this additional slide that we added on competitors, because I think it's so important, right? We call this, and Alyssa, can you remind me again, did we introduce this slide in the market research training?
No.
Okay, very simple slide, very simple tool, but incredibly powerful, right? We call it the competitive landscape tool, right? And what we try to do is, after we've done the business environment mapping, right? We've looked at the different competitors. Most of you guys named all of your competitors, right? That's fine, but that's the very first step, right? So if we were to list all of the plantain chip companies in Nigeria, right? Or maybe it's all of the big plantain chip companies in your area, right? Then can we think about what are the key features, right? And features for a SME, right? This is more of a traditional SME versus a sort of startup tech company. Features might include their packaging, their reach, what geographic area, their price point, their marketing strategy, their distribution network. Do they hire trucks? Do they own their own trucks? Do they rent, and do they use a leasing model? That's three very different channels, right? That would impact their pricing and their customer engagement. Do they have a website? First, if they have a website, can we go to their websites and learn as much as we can, right? Are they diversified, that they're not just doing plantain chips, but they're using their machinery and their agro-processing facility to actually sell a lot of different products, and this is just one product line? Or are they niche? Are they actually saying that they're niche? Are they branding themselves as, we are locally made, we are organic? Are they certified, right? So maybe they're fair trade certified or organic certified, or they're branding themselves as, we are, we're local foods and we're healthier because we don't use added sugars or added salts, right? I've already listed 15 different features, and that was just me brainstorming, and I don't know too much about plantain chips. You could probably come up with lots of different features, and then your goal as in the market research for this competitive landscape comparison is, if you could list the 3 major plantain chip companies, how do we get information about them? Maybe some of them are willing to talk to you. Maybe there are customers that have worked with them, and maybe there are customers that are bought in bulk from them. Maybe they sell to a supermarket, and that supermarket, the actual procurement manager of that supermarket is willing to talk to you to say, hey, we love these plantain chips because they always come in bulk, and their transparent packaging means people can tell that they're fresh, and lots of people are buying them, and their price point is really good. We need to triangulate. We won't be able to always answer every question. We won't be able to get all of the information, right? As you say, many businesses keep a lot of aspects of their business model private, but businesses are still selling into the public space. So some aspect of their business model is out there for us to learn about.
Great answer. Very insightful. But I would like you to explain this table because this table seems to give some more detail on how we can actually operationalize it.
Absolutely. So I think it's in a way it's a simple table. I was using the example of how, I mean, I don't know. I imagine, let's say there's 3 or 5 plantain chip companies in Nigeria. What you would do is you put each of the company's names, and this, for example, this is the actual logo, right? So it's just a simple visual tool. You can put the company name or the logo of the 3 to 5 competitors, your competitors. You are entering into the plantain chip market and you want to learn about your competitors. And then the features is you're putting the different aspects of their business model along the first column. And so price point might help you distinguish. Some might be selling to a lower end market versus a higher end. Some might use higher quality packaging to secure freshness, while others might be selling sort of in if they're selling in a smaller rural market, the turnover might be higher. Some might be advertising themselves in different types of, with certifications or different types of ingredients. So is there salt added? Is there sugar added? Are they fair trade? Are they organic? You can start to list, when I say feature, it's every single business model is going to be different. But the tool itself simply puts competitors across the top and you're listing a bunch of features, and then you get out of the building and try to, well, you can start by going to their websites and reading about them as much as possible. Maybe maybe someone did a nice success story about them. And that's going to give you some insights as well. We do case studies on businesses all the time, and a case study helps you learn about the business and get a little bit of insight. And so the tool itself, very simple, but incredibly powerful, because then it helps you look at it and say, if every single plantain chip company in Nigeria is all adding additional preservatives and adding sugar and additional salt, maybe your differentiator is you're all natural. And now you know that because you've done a basic competitive landscape mapping. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So with this landscape, you will be able to carve a niche for yourself in the market.
You would be able to, sorry, say that again?
You carve a niche for yourself. You now identify the area, because you're a new entrant, so you then know the area where you will enter, and then you carve a niche for yourself within the landscape.
Yes, you are starting to define your value proposition. That's what this is about, your unique selling proposition, your differentiator. How and why do you actually think you are going to be able to make money and compete in this market? And when we think of it as investors, if I am an investor, okay, and Hefzibah and the team are planning a investor pitch event, and you are a LiveWIRE entrepreneur that's about to pitch your plantain chip business, then as an investor, if I see that you've done your homework, that you've done this competitive landscape mapping, then I say, interesting. They know about the other plantain chip companies. They know what their strengths and weaknesses are. They know about their price points. They know about some of their marketing strategies and their geographic reach. Well, you're going to do something different. Then as an investor, I'm interested, because then your growth strategy, right? Which links again to the total addressable market, right? All of these are connected. As you understand your competitors, you're going to be able to have a more realistic structure to what your total addressable market is. And then as an investor, I'm looking and saying, wow, this guy's done his research. He knows the plantain chip market. He knows the competitive landscape. I'm feeling more comfortable investing in you because you're actually going to be entering a market that I think you can fill a niche. There's a gap there. You've done this is a gap analysis. That's what this is.
Zaki, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, this is Maxwell here. Just to add to what Zaki has said, I think this very important tool, and it brings to mind SWOT analysis as well. Yeah, so you need to understand that your competitors have a solution to provide, but they may not provide all the answers or solutions. So you look out for their strengths, their weaknesses, and the opportunities and threats. And then from there, you'll be able to do what they are not able to do. That's where the gap analysis comes in. And then you provide a solution that will bring customers, attract even their customers to you, because you're able to do a little bit above what they're providing or the solution they're trying to provide. So I think it's important. And also the ocean strategy, the blue ocean strategy comes to mind as well. Yeah, because you see, we have competition very much increasing in this 21st century. So you begin to look at what can you do differently that your competitors aren't doing. And that makes you stand out and be able to be competitive and also have competitive advantage in the marketplace. So I just felt I should add this as well. The blue ocean strategy is very important.
Yep, absolutely. And all of these are, we would say, open source tools, right? There's lots of information about them. There's lots of simple ways to project them. There are free learning videos about them. And so for you all to build your own capacity as trainers, figure out which ones are the ones you feel comfortable training on, right? And then be able to think through how you would train on those to support your LiveWire entrepreneurs. More questions around competitive landscape or around the business model environment process or the business model tool itself? I'll add one more, which builds on what Alyssa said around socioeconomic and cultural trends. This one is a little bit tougher to explain, but you're trying to get at the underlying motivations and forces acting on your customer segments. Again, the reason why competitors are on the left-hand side of the business model is because often a competitor can possibly become a partner. So it's close to the key partner section. The customer segment, you're putting down your key customers, and then the cultural and economic trends is getting at those underlying influences in their lives that are actually driving buyer behavior. And so those actually might be the most important forces that are going to give us insights into what their real motivations are. The stuff that they may not even really be telling you is actually what's driving them, right? And we know, let's say, influencers on social media are telling us to do something. We're starting to appreciate how powerful that is, right? And so there was some question, there was something around, some folks would say things like, environmental awareness, right? Many of you guys put, but let's go deeper. Environmental awareness. What does that mean? Is it that young people in urban areas that are educated care more about recycling? Is it that there's more of a government push to promote renewable energy in rural areas that are driving more investment and more awareness around solar, right? Those are two different things. By simply saying environmental awareness, it's too basic. We need to dig deeper to really try to understand the trends that are driving possible buyer behavior. And so I think for you all, go back to your homeworks, think about, I think most like the regulatory side, I think is pretty clear, many of the technology. The competitor one, we've talked a little bit about where you can go deeper and use tools like the competitor landscape. But the socioeconomic cultural trends, go back, look at what you put down and try to go a little bit deeper to say, what are the actual broader societal trends that are influencing my potential customer segment. And if I can get some insights into that, it might help me adjust my business model. A very simple example might be, we thought we were going to launch a website, but we actually realized what we want to launch is a Facebook and an Instagram account and not a website. Right? That's both a tech trend and a socioeconomic cultural trend, right, of who our customers are. So all of this is about where are we going to find insights? How do we push our entrepreneurs to keep thinking about all the different aspects of their business model, bring it back to the business model canvas, and see which elements they might need to adjust.
Hello, this is Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation on the business model environment. I wanted to say that sometimes in putting that together, because of the boxes, we may not be able to, we try to put like a high level pinpoint, this is it. We may not be able to explain in detail what we were trying to convey. So sometimes that also affects maybe the understanding from your own end. So maybe is there a way we could also, like a footnote and all that, talk about it later on so that it imparts, there's shared learning on that. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that some of the benefits from this, beyond the gap analysis that you can get from the competitor landscape, is looking at especially the regulatory issues, technological trends. It reminds me of what you call the pestle analysis that you could use to look at risk factors in going into the business. So, for example, you're able to identify, certain, regulations, government laws that could be, affecting that business model, and you definitely know that you don't want to go there or invest into that because that would be a waste of money. So risk factors can also pop out, using this business model environment. Thank you.
Can you share the name again?
The name of pestle analysis.
Can I ask in the chat box, could you, whether it's a link or just, could you put that full name?
Okay, let me do that.
And Maxwell, you mentioned Blue Ocean. Could you put that name in the chat box? There's so many resources. We have great learning here, even just amongst you all as peers and colleagues. So I think we want to be sharing what we have here, and we're going to also talk about the full LiveWIRE set of materials in just a few minutes. It's not exhaustive. We're continuing to build out the training materials. There are lots of new types of tools coming out. And so let's all just keep learning together and see which tools work for us. I want to take a couple of the quick questions here. Let's start with Belema. What is the ideal recommended time frame, number of days for a in-class training? Is it advisable to run 5 days without a break, or is it better to have a process that has breaks? By the way, between sessions, like it has been done in this ToT, what are the pros and cons? Great question. I thought, Belema, you had your video on. You don't. Okay, so great question. LiveWIRE programs around the world run their programs differently. And so even with Hepzibah and Shegu, we've been sharing a bit of the different types of ways in which LiveWIRE programs are run. And so I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong way per se. Our friends in the LiveWIRE program in Trinidad and Tobago, for example, they only work with existing SMEs. So they're running it as an accelerator. And all of the business people said, we can't be in a classroom for 5 days at a time. So they run evening and weekend classes over the course of 5 months, I think, because that was what fit for them. Many LiveWIRE programs, though, have found the boot camp model is effective because it gets the entrepreneurs out of their business and really focused. So, for example, Indonesia, South Africa, Egypt, a number of other LiveWire country programs. They run, sometimes it's 2-day, 3-day, or 5-day boot camps, but they do it more than once. So I think the biggest learning around a cohort-based peer learning accelerator training model is that we want to give them some homework and then have them come back and hopefully be able to reflect on that. So even if it's a 2-day and it's 2 days over, 2 days and then a gap and then 2 days, or 3 days or 5 days, some of this has to do with resources, right? There's different costs to this, right? And some of it has to do with the type of entrepreneur we're targeting, ideation stage, early stage, existing SME. Some of it has to do with logistics and transport. So I'm not going to get into those details, right? But for us, what we recommend is, if possible, if there can be at least the cohesion is built by having them come back more than once. They can learn from each other. They build hopefully some trust amongst themselves with you all. You can bring in some maybe guest lecturers, maybe some mentors or coaches, and there's different ways you can run these types of boot camps, and we have lots of learning around that. But the biggest one is the design thinking approach says we as trainers are not the experts. We will never be the experts of their business. This is their business. We are facilitators. We're sharing some ideas. We're sharing some tools. They need to roll up their sleeves and go out, talk to customers, use these tools, and then they can come back to a LiveWire training classroom and reflect on it in a safe place. That's the lean startup mindset, right? A safe place to go take risks, to learn, to reflect, and to sort of see how they can innovate. That's what this is all about. Hopefully that was a helpful answer. Can I get a thumbs up from Mbelema?
Yeah, definitely it was. I think for me, I totally agree with some of the best practices that you shared from experience. So far what we've been doing is that we normally run the 5 days stretch. And then we have the opportunity, maybe when they're doing awards, to come back to them. But I think everything, about the models you've shared indicates that they need to learn by doing, get out of the building. And just like Hepzibah had shared earlier, how much time, you don't have enough time for them to do that practice. And sometimes until we're out there and practicing, we don't connect with stuff. So I think some kind of mix, boot camp, accelerate, or get experts in. I think that some of the suggestions you made, all of them actually are really good to take in.
We're seeing there's several programs that run 2 3-day boot camps over the course of a month, or 3 3-day boot camps over the course of 3 months, or 3 2-day boot camps over the course of 3 months. So some of them they're mixing it up, also certainly depending on resources. And this is where we're not here to give guidance on that for LiveWire programs. We're just sharing what other LiveWire programs have done. But that whole idea, it's learning by doing, giving them homework that they should be coming back and be able to reflect with their peers on as a way to prepare for pitch events and other things.
Hello. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, is there someone? Yes. Someone asking
Hello.
another question?
Question, please.
Yes.
Okay, this is Abia. Now, as rightly pointed out, LiveWire training is a unique and to different countries, the way in which the training is actually modeled, and though the end result is one. In Nigeria here, for example, every LiveWire training ends with the empowerment of the would-be entrepreneurs with a certain amount of capital for them to start up their businesses, and they are being supervised. Now, with the new tools that we are learning now for the training, at the ideation stage, is it necessary for us to have an idea, or for the entrepreneurs to be trained to have an idea of the capital, the level of capital or the amount of capital that they are expected to run with at the end of the training? Now, considering the fact that we've been told that we should not limit our ideas, we should open up, every idea should be welcome, no matter how bogus it is, no matter how small it is, that every idea should be welcome at the ideation stage and all through the processes until they are being sieved to have specifics about the trend. Now, what I'm trying to avoid is having an idea that requires maybe ₦1 million, and here you are at the end of the training, you'll be given, assuming maybe 200,000, 500,000, and the idea is for ₦1 million plus. I don't know if you can get through with that.
Great. I have my own perspectives. I want to see, are there others that want to jump in? I see Belema shaking her head. I don't know if Hepzibah wants to jump in here as well to respond to that question.
Oh, Abia, thanks. That's quite a valid question that sometimes we think about. The first thing is to assess the passion of the will-be entrepreneur in the business he or she is looking at, not necessarily the cash. But the flip side is, like Abia said, sometimes if you ask them to write proposals, they'll come up with proposals that are way, above the grant that SPDC or Shell will give to them. So it also makes sense that they have an idea of what the grant is like, so that they do not go overboard in their imaginations and business plans. So it's just a two-way thing that I would also like to hear from us in the room.
Hi, this is Bitable. So my own take is this: if it's a bankable idea,
is that Betty-Bo? Could you speak louder? Sorry.
Okay, so Hepzibah, I was saying that if it's a bankable idea and the person has a very good business model, I don't think it's about the passion, because by the time you get to execution phase, sometimes passion fizzles out, so the practicality of that particular business model is more important than just the passion. So if the person has a bankable idea, like in nonprofit, you have what you have, contributory kind of grants. The nonprofit is supposed to have a certain percentage and then gets another grant from somewhere else. So it's the same thing. The young entrepreneur can, meet some other, angel investors to invest in his or her business. So for me, that's my take. It doesn't have to be fully funded by the Shell LiveWIRE program. So if it's a business model that is bankable, then we have angel investors that the person can also get extra funding from. Having said that, also want to contribute a little bit to Belema's question. I recently finished a 3-day program with another organization, and they were introducing very new ideas to us as implementing partners. Now, we didn't have any break. Then yesterday, after finishing a session, this is a training that is supposed to take like 2 weeks, or if it had been in person, it would have taken like 3 whole days, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's exactly what they told us. So they compressed everything to 3 days, 2 hours each day. And then yesterday we were asked to do an assignment. They broke us up into small groups and asked us to do an assignment to meet for 1 hour. Nobody responded.
Oh.
it was very embarrassing. Nobody responded because most of the ideas are new. So if we're, giving these new ideas to young entrepreneurs who most likely have never had this kind of experience before, and we decide to have like 5 days training for them without, like Belema or Zaki said, without them going out, to the real world to test it and to come back to give us their feedback, then the truth is that we're going to meet with a very negative, result. So I think that, 2 days thereabout, I have really liked the way this one has been modeled, although it was still a bit challenging in terms of the homework, especially the last 3, So the idea of going out there, testing it, coming back, getting feedback, I think is a good way to go about it. Thank you.
These are great, important conversations here. And I think just from the, let's say, I'll put on my LiveWIRE global hat and say that this whole design thinking, brainstorming, ideation, it's not, the goal is not to necessarily have young people come up with wild and crazy ideas that are not bankable. No, that's obviously not what we want. But we're saying, let's start big, help them start big. That's the divergent thinking side of it, to see where some new ideas, some new ways of looking at the same problem. And then the part of the training also is helping them think through it. These tools gets them to ground truth it. The wild idea is maybe the $1 million idea, or a wild idea needs to be slightly changed, or what we would say they need to pivot a little bit to be grounded in a market reality. And then they maybe need to start small, but they have a big vision. And so they do their business model canvas, they're looking at their business environment, they're diving into a couple customer segments. Maybe the empathy map helps them realize, these 3 customer segments, this one actually is not a good market for me. And then they drop that, okay. And then they use the competitor analysis tool to realize that they actually were looking to do this particular niche, but they need to do something else. So all of this keeps ground truthing them, but we're still wanting young people to come with big ideas. We want entrepreneurs, they need to start big. I think that's maybe the motivation. Hopefully that resonated.
I will say, just picking up on what Zaki said with taking it after doing all of the trainings and the modules and the tools, kind of that next step for getting the additional funding on top of whatever LiveWIRE can offer. What we've seen with a program that we've led in Ghana, that's an entrepreneurship training challenge, is they host a big pitch event. They invite different investors from Ghana to come. And what they do, the team, is they create an offer book that has kind of a high level, maybe 1-pager on each one of the entrepreneurs with, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is the innovative, and this is the ask. And so they say, this is our idea, this is what we want financially. Or maybe it's a non-financial ask. Maybe they want, okay, we want connections to the renewable energy solar market in rural Nigeria. So we want connections to the primary solar panel manufacturers. So those are the types of things that our team helps the entrepreneurs think through, so that way they can have a very clear idea, the entrepreneurs, of what they want. The investors will know, oh, okay, these are the ways I can help. And then a complementary aspect to that is by having the investors have a sheet of paper where they see all the entrepreneurs and they will tick off, okay, this is what I'm willing to offer for specific entrepreneurs. So I think that is one way that obviously LiveWIRE does not have unending funds within Nigeria, but that's one way that your team can kind of help elevate these entrepreneurs to the next level. It looks like, Victor, did you have one additional aspect you had wanted to add? Or was that, oh, Bitebo, you already responded, okay.
With the time we have, I'd like to move just to get through the slides, and we can then continue with these great questions. Does that sound good? How are people feeling? Energy level. 1 is really low energy. 5, we're really excited. What's the energy level like here?
Via looks like a 5.
Wow.
5.
Okay, so we got 30 minutes to go. Let's keep plugging along here. Market research. So can I quickly get a show of hands? Who's heard of these terms before this? Total addressable market, serviceable, addressable, and serviceable obtainable market. TAM, SAM, SOM. Have some of you guys heard of these concepts before? Or was this new for most folks?
It's new for me.
I also, oops. Let's try that again. Did I just lose the screen? Yeah. There we go. All right. Slight. Okay. So this is a very common market research tool that entrepreneurs are expected to put together for investors. And this is why we put here at the bottom, think like an investor, right? So if I'm an investor, I want to figure out, is this an interesting market for me to invest in your business? So I'm going to go back to, was it Henry, the plantain chip? Was that Henry? Who's starting a plantain chip company?
It was Edmund.
Edmund. Okay, so we're Edmund the entrepreneur is preparing for the LiveWIRE Nigeria pitch event and putting together the TAM, SAM, and SOM, right? So part of this is it's a mix of art and science, right? Market research, also a mix of art and science. There's going to be some data that's available, and some of it we're going to have to estimate, right? So for something like the plantain chip market, there's probably not as much rigorous data globally or even throughout Africa or nationally as there is in the solar panel market, right? But that we need to kind of think about how maybe we can get data from from an agriculture food processing association, or maybe the Ministry of Agriculture has some data points on processed foods that gets us some data points. But the point of the exercise itself is almost what's more important than the actual data point. We're trying to say, hey, the banana chip market is actually quite big. It is in West Africa. We have estimated that the banana chip market is $100 million business, and it's growing each year. The whole thing is, this should be a data point, but if we can also get growth trajectory, that helps the investor say, I want to invest in a growing market. I don't want to invest in a declining market. If everyone is, if it's gone from 100 million to 50 million to now it's a $10 million business, that means that people are eating less plantain chips. Well, then as an investor, I don't know if I want to invest in your plantain chip market. You need to convince me why you want to open a business in a market that is declining, right? So total addressable gives you sort of that big picture. Serviceable, right? It's that portion of the TAM served by your company's products or services. And often the easiest way to look at it is the geographic reach. So we might say Southern Nigeria is our serviceable addressable market in the next 5 years. And so there might be 10 plantain chip companies in all of Nigeria, but there are only 3 in Southern Nigeria. All of a sudden the TAM is bigger, the SAM is quite a bit smaller. And then we say, there's only 3, but we know demand is growing, and my organic plantain chips are going to be the best in the market, and I'm going to sell to households, and I'm also going to be selling to supermarkets. And then all of a sudden you say, my goal is to get 10% of the Southern Nigeria market share within 5 years. And this needs to be grounded in some reality. So for an investor, if you say those data points, when I say think like an investor, think about the questions an investor is going to ask you about whether these are realistic numbers. How are you going to get to 10% of the southern Nigeria plantain chip market? Well, I have this growth strategy, and we can talk through how you would put that together, right? But the goal is put some data points to see, is it an interesting market to go into? And if you, I think what we learn, here's one of the big things. I think what we learn is for some LiveWire entrepreneurs, they have a really great idea, which they're passionate about, but then they actually go and do the TAM, SAM, and SOM, and they realize that the market segment that they're trying to enter is actually quite small. And if it's so small, it's actually maybe not, maybe they need to think about their business model. Maybe they need to expand actually their service line a bit more. Maybe they thought, we are going to target this one particular customer segment. We are going to target college students in southern Nigeria who are passionate about fair trade plantain chips. That's what we want to do because my son cares about it. I'm going to work with my son on college students in southern Nigeria, plantain chips, organic certified. And then we actually do the market and we realize it's actually only like a $10,000 market. Is that really that interesting? Maybe we need to expand it a little bit. This is it's a process to put some data to get us to get some numbers around the market. It's not pure science, but we want to be grounded in as much data that's available. Does this help a little bit? Feedback, questions, concerns on TAM, SAM, SOM?
Yeah, Zaki, I think it does. Zaki, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I think it does, particularly for a product or service that will be able to even access secondary information from either the Bureau of Statistics or business, what do you call business organizations and things like that. We'll be able to know, for instance, the expected demand in the states in the south, and then the whole country, and then you'll be able to say that, okay, I'm zeroing in to be able to supply or service this segment, and then with time I'll be able to expand to service this other available. So I think it's okay, it makes some sense. So just that the plantain chip example, like you said also, information is not easily available. So whoever is going to do this will do a lot of innovations to be able to get the information. But I think it shows the roadmap on how it could be done.
And this is where us as facilitators, as trainers, can help our entrepreneurs. Again, we don't need to be the experts on plantain chips to help a plantain chip entrepreneur, right? Help them ask the right questions, right? So if I'm working with Edmund, the plantain chip entrepreneur, and I know nothing about plantain chips, I would start asking, how can we go get market research on whether demand is increasing? That's a really tough question. If the government does not track plantain chip growth, how do we go do it? One tactic might be, if we know plantain chips are sold in 5 major supermarkets in southern Nigeria, can we go interview the procurement managers or the sales managers at these 5 supermarkets and ask them, hey, has sales been increasing of your plantain chips? It gets you at least a data point that starts to say, I have some data that's complemented with anecdotal evidence that the 5 largest supermarkets in southern Nigeria that are selling plantain chips have all shown a growth in sales in the last 2 years. That is a really powerful data point to help you say to an investor, to a partner, to your own team, we are entering into a growing market. And economists have to do this all the time. They have to sort of try to figure this out because the data, it's hard to get really good, rigorous, updated market research. So how do we think low-cost ways to help our entrepreneurs go learn about their market? go learn about their competitors, go learn about the major buyers, and go learn about demand trends. That's what this tool helps us to do. Not easy. I'm not saying this is easy.
So yeah, thank you so much, Zaki. I think this really helps a lot. This is it helps a lot because, you know, for an investor, you're able to look at the market and see, like you said, if it's a growing market, it's a market that is already saturated, you know, or if it's a market that is shrinking, and you know from this analysis, if you want to put in, you know, your money. And let me just say that for some areas, especially for areas that are a bit novel or new, sometimes, like you said, you need to do a lot more work in terms of, you know, like the demographics, and then tying that up to the population. So for example, you're looking at the plantain chips market, like you mentioned, going to the supermarkets to see areas. That's one way. Another way also is if you want to look at the total serviceable market, you know that it is definitely more popular in the South. So an idea of maybe the population figures of, you know, demographics of people that normally eat that comes into question. You know, usually people on the road or people that are traveling, you know, buy these things, and then you have an idea of, you know, doing your calculations, you know, to really get information. But it's a lot of work, but it's something that is very that can come in very handy for anybody.
And as trainers, can we support our entrepreneurs to walk through the process to get them to go do their own market research? We might have some networks we can help them put in touch with. There might be some researchers, but this is some great ideas, right? If we can say something like 75% of all plantain chips sold in the South are sold on the side of the road along these 5 major roads, and there's an estimated 10 million drivers that go by annually, and 5% of them stop to buy plantain chips. All of a sudden, we have some data points, right? I don't know. I'm just making this up, right? But it's like, can we at least try to think about within our network, the LiveWIRE network, who we could go talk to help get a young person access to that type of market research? I think it's possible. When Belema's nodding her head, then I know I'm on the right track.
This is Bitable. Hello.
Yes,
Zaki.
hi.
This is Bitable. So sometimes too, I think that, you know, doing this exercise causes the entrepreneurs to pause and think about it. You know, that great idea. I was just telling Victor, with the COVID-19, I was thinking about getting some face shields from China. And my husband went like, hold on, it's a new market. You don't know, the price could crash. And at the end of the day, that advice actually saved me a lot of money, you know, because if I had gotten it like in April, by now I would have been running at a huge loss, you know. So the Tam and Sam could help them to just pause, do the research first, instead of running away. Because one of the things that I've also noticed is that a lot of times entrepreneurs go from their ideas to just calculating the profit. And so that's what gives them the excitement without seeing the journey in between. So this kind of gets them to pause and see, like Victor rightly said, is it a shrinking market? Is it something that is volatile that they should do more research before they dive into it?
Okay, thank you. This is Maxwell here, Zaki.
Yes.
Thanks for Victor and the last speaker. Okay, Bitable, thanks for that insight. Just to add as well, because this is a very good tool, market sizing tool. It's good for market research. And I think it makes it clearer when you talk about feasibility studies. Yeah, a lot of them are used to the term feasibility studies. So I think introducing it and breaking it in these various, various items, terms, SAM, and SOM makes it a lot more clearer and usable. just to say also that investors look at this very critically, because if your TAM, SAM, and SOM is not convincing enough, definitely they will not buy into your business. And also as a starter, you need to investigate this properly to actually know where to really, the line of business you need to embark on. Like Victor rightly said, is it a shrinking business? Is it a growing business? Is it viable? You know, the viability of the business. I think it's very important attention is paid in this market sizing to really make sure that they start on the right foot. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxwell. In the next 10 minutes, we are going to briefly go through some of the other broad questions that were highlighted, and then we are going to close out for the day. But of course, you all are part of the LiveWIRE Global family. We are part of the LiveWIRE Global family, and we are always available. So hopefully, this is just the start of a relationship, engagement, and a discussion. So you guys are going to get these slides. Here are some additional resources we pulled together. Some great experts, people a lot smarter than us, are putting together information on TAM, SAM, and SOM that you guys can leverage. I think we've gone through most of these, yeah, Alyssa? And I think actually I'm going to jump to participant questions. And I don't see, Alyssa, are you here? There you are, sorry. Okay, so a few different questions. What will you consider an ideal class size for running a design thinking workshop, modules 1 through 5, with 2 trainers? I don't think there's an ideal size. I think classroom management says, you know, anything above 25 or 30 starts to just get difficult to manage. Can you do it? Sure. As long as you're breaking them then into smaller groups very frequently, I think you can possibly do a little bit bigger than that, but we try not to. So again, different LiveWIRE, some do smaller, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, but I think that's sort of like maybe where we gets a bit cumbersome after that. Alyssa?
Okay, and then Belema had also asked, so if these 5 modules are the foundational modules out of the typical 20 LiveWIRE modules, as you indicated in the introductory class, then what are the other 15 modules? So as Zaki had mentioned, you'll receive this PowerPoint, and here is a list of all of the different, I think there are 18 in total training modules that we have. And as part of the Shell LiveWIRE family, you have access to all of these training modules. And Hepzibah also has links to every single one of the training modules. And so if you're interested in learning more or looking through some of that material, we're more than happy to share it with you.
We can come back to this point. Let's just get through the questions and then and go through. In the business model canvas I saw online, sales promotion was listed under channels. How so? I would assume the promotion might also be a way of getting and retaining customers. Great. So the business model canvas tool, it's used by different companies in different ways. It's used by different sectors in different ways. And so even sometimes when it's written very briefly, just like someone mentioned, we don't fully know all the details of what they meant. And so it could be that when they say sales promotion, if it was a referral system, for example, there might be a way in which that's both a channel and a customer relationship. If it's a sales promotion strategy that gives discounts, it might be a revenue stream as well as a channel. And so I think I wouldn't hold on to. I think it's really good to look online, look at examples, look at how different companies do this and keep learning, but you're going to see slightly different iterations. And so I think that's almost not, don't get caught up in that. Focus on how you would train on the types of questions that our LiveWIRE entrepreneurs need to ask themselves for each of the boxes. That's the most important piece. Oh, is that the last question?
It is.
Okay, so then we actually have, 5 more minutes. How do we close up in the last 5 minutes? With a pause, I'm going to jump here. And this is, well, Hepzibah, I think this is for you to sort of explore how you want to share some of this, right? But basically, what the global team has done over the last 9 months, about a year, we have been working with many LiveWire programs to build out training materials. Some of these are 1 to 2 hour training modules. Others are 3 to 4 hour training modules. Many of them come with local examples. They come with activity sheets. They come with homework assignments. Some of them, we already have complimentary webinars that we have recorded that can be shown, and then you can run it similar to how we ran this, which is the entrepreneurs have to watch the webinar, do some homework, and then you as the trainers join them in a live setting to discuss. Some of our newest ones in particular, cash and cost management, absolutely key one. We focus, of the 3 financial statements, we focus on cash flow mostly. This was more for sort of in the middle of COVID, how do you understand cash flow? How do you change? What types of cash and cost management strategies do you use? And how does that affect your cash flow statement? Raising early stage capital, we just had a global webinar which we can, and Hepzibah, we can talk about how we can get some of these materials to various of our LiveWire colleagues here. This is very much around helping an entrepreneur understand and prepare the financial ask component of a pitch. Let's see, what else? Certainly e-commerce and social media marketing are ones we're getting a lot more interest and attention in. Even many LiveWire programs that work with more traditional SMEs are needing to sell online. So we put together a full set of training materials that lays the foundation that then trainers, implementing partners are adding on to based on their own local markets, since this is more at a global level, that then they need some of the relevant technical topics. So we wanted to just highlight that, yes, indeed, for this virtual ToT, we were able to sort of get you guys started on some of the core new materials, but there are certainly quite a lot of other LiveWire global training materials.
And with that, I think we would like to say a huge thank you from our end. It's been really wonderful getting to know you all virtually and see your faces. And we really hope that as soon as travel can assume again, that we will be able to meet you in person, do some of these fun Energizer improv games, maybe even start our own plantain company. And we also, let's see, Henry, you've got your hand raised. Is there anything you'd like to add just right before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks for putting us through this training and to share LiveWire. Say a big thank you. I hope to see you again. Thanks.
Thank you, Henry. So yes, a huge thank you from us. And I will hand it over to Zaki, and then Hepzibah, we'd love to have you add the concluding remarks for the training.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. This was great. And yeah, we are certainly available. So we appreciate your engagement and patience with us. And hopefully you guys learned a bit through this process. Hepzibah, do you want to close this up?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate the time you've spent in this training, and we hope you also, got some new learnings from it. I'd like to appreciate my colleagues that are on the call. they were quite interested. I have Professor Alison Oguru here, and I have Anike Kakayo representing Dr. Gloria Udo. Anike, if you would like to say something, please just would like to hear your voice. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, our trainers. It's been very, very exciting, and there's a lot of energy in the room, and we hope to see it reflect in our entrepreneurs in the next training, and of course the impact this training will have on the entrepreneurs that will be coming after now. So thank you all. God bless you. Annika, if you'd like to say something.
All right, just trying to unmute my video. Just saying something because you called me. I'm actually here on my own. I wanted to learn, and really I've soaked up so much. I don't know how I'm going to take it all, and I see there's so much more material to go through as well. So thank you very, very much. It was very, you know, involving. You know, all the participants had questions, and it was really good. And it helps us also to see, because I know Hepzibah's working on how we can actually implement a LiveWIRE program with virtual, with the new realities. So this even gives me a view as to how we can do that. So I appreciate your time, all of you, and thanks again on behalf of Gloria this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Nice to meet
See
you all.
guys sometime.
Yeah, bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Alisa and
Bye.
Zach.